After the July storms rolled through here, my phone did not stop for about 4 days straight. Same call over and over. Somebody's got a wrap on their truck or their van. Something came off a tree or off the highway, and now there's a gash in one panel, and they're sitting there thinking they just lost the whole wrap. So let's talk about that. Because the answer's better than most people expect, and there's a catch you should know about before you spend $1. Here's the short version. Yes, you can replace one panel, and honestly, that's kind of the whole point of how a wrap gets installed in the first place. Think about how vinyl actually goes on a vehicle. It's not one giant sheet stretched over the car like a shrink wrap. It's panel by panel. Your hood's its own piece. Each door's its own piece. Quarter panels, roof, bumpers, all separate pieces of film with their own edges and their own tucks around the trim. So when a branch shreds your driver's door, that door skin comes off, and the other 7 panels never get touched. Nobody's peeling your whole truck. What that means for your wallet is pretty simple. You're paying for one panel's worth of material and the labor to strip that panel and reinstall it. You are not paying for a second full wrap. That's a big difference. But here's the thing. The labor's not really the tricky part. The tricky part is whether the new film still looks like the film sitting right next to it. Hold that thought, because that's where most of this conversation actually lives. First, let me back up and talk about what actually happened here on July 21st, because it was a real event, not just a windy afternoon. The National Weather Service out of Louisville documented a widespread severe weather event across Kentucky and southern Indiana that day. Damaging straight-line winds brought down trees and power lines across several counties, and the Warren County area was right in it. There was also an EF2 tornado that tracked 21 miles through Grayson and Hart counties, which is just up I-65 from us. Warren, Logan, and Butler counties all sat under a severe thunderstorm warning that afternoon. 60-mile-per-hour gusts, quarter-size hail in the forecast. And here's the part that most people don't think about. That same day carried a heat advisory, with the heat index pushing past 105. Why does that matter for vinyl? Because hot vinyl is soft vinyl, and soft vinyl tears a whole lot easier when something hits it. A piece of debris that might have just bounced off on a 60-degree day in March will cut clean through film that's been baking in a 100-degree parking lot all afternoon. So it wasn't just the wind. It was the wind plus the heat. All right, so let's go through what actually shows up on a vehicle after a storm like that, because not everything that looks catastrophic in a parking lot actually needs new film. Some of it genuinely fixes itself. Hail dimples where the film didn't break, usually nothing, sometimes nothing at all. If the vinyl's intact and the metal underneath isn't creased, you may be looking at paintless dent repair down the road, and that's more about the panel than the wrap. The thing that drives the cost there is whether that sheet metal got creased, not the film. An actual cut or tear from debris, that's your panel replacement. Cost comes down to how big the panel is and how many edges it's got to wrap around, because edges are where the labor lives. A lifted edge near a wheel arch. That's often just a reheat and a retack, or a partial section. What decides it is how long that edge sat lifted and whether water got underneath it. Then there's the branch that scraped across 2 panels. Now you're replacing both. And it gets more involved if the graphic crosses that seam, which I'll come back to. And then the least dramatic one. Sap, sediment, standing water staining. A lot of that's just a deep clean. The only thing that turns it into a real problem is how many days it sat there before anybody washed it. So maybe half of what we look at after a storm needs one panel. A decent chunk of it needs nothing at all beyond a proper wash. Now the complicated part, the matching. A wrap that spent 2 Kentucky summers riding the 31W bypass is not the same shade as fresh film straight off the roll. That's just physics. UV works on pigment. Gloss colors hold up pretty well, all things considered. But reds, oranges, and some blues shift measurably over a couple of seasons. So you put a brand new hood next to 2-year-old fenders, and in direct sunlight that hood can read a little brighter. Not wrong exactly, just newer. And this is where I'll tell people something they don't always expect from a wrap shop. If your vehicle's already several years in, sometimes replacing the whole thing with matched fresh film across every panel makes more sense than chasing a match you're never quite going to nail. I'd rather tell you that up front than hand you back a truck with one panel that bugs you every time you walk past it. Matte and satin are the hardest cases. With gloss, your eye is reading color. With matte, your eye is reading texture, and texture changes with wear. Washing, road grit, UV. All of it works on that finish over time. So if you went with a matte or satin color change, a replaced panel is going to stand out more than it would on a gloss car. It usually blends within a season, but it will be visible at first, and I'd rather you hear that from me now than be surprised later. Then there's graphics that cross panel lines. This one catches business owners off guard. If you've got a logo running across a door and a rear quarter, we can't just fix the door. The artwork has to be reprinted and reinstalled across every panel it touches, so the alignment stays true. Otherwise, your logo's got a seam through it that doesn't line up and everybody sees it. Okay, practical stuff. What do you actually do in the first 48 hours? Photograph it in daylight before you wash anything. Insurance, our estimate. All of it goes smoother with clean photos. Wash off the sap and the leaf debris and the road sediment. Soap and water, not a pressure wand held up close to the film. That's how a small problem becomes a big one. Tape down any lifted edge, temporarily, just so wind and water can't get further underneath. Keep it out of direct sun if there's a section actually torn, because heat speeds up peeling. And then get somebody to look at it before that lifted edge starts spreading across the panel. I want to be really clear about this one. A small tear left alone for 3 weeks in August heat turns into a half-panel failure. Edges are where wraps fail always, and a fresh cut in your film creates a brand new edge that didn't exist yesterday. Time is genuinely working against you here. Now if you're running a fleet, the math is different, and you already know it. The vinyl's not your real cost. Your real cost is a truck parked in a bay instead of running calls in Glasgow or Franklin. Every day it sits, that's the number that hurts. That's exactly why we keep artwork files and film specs on record for every multi-vehicle account we handle. When a van takes storm damage, the reprint starts that same day, not after a week of somebody rebuilding your logo files from a business card and a photo off Facebook. So here's a genuinely useful thing to do this week, whether you work with us or not. If you've got branded vehicles running around Warren County, call whoever installed your work truck and van graphics and confirm they still have your source artwork. Plenty of shops don't. Better to find that out on a quiet Tuesday than the morning after the next storm. Last thing, how do you take less damage next time? Let's be honest about what vinyl is. It's roughly 4/1000ths of an inch thick. It hides your paint beautifully. It does not armor it. It was never designed to. So if storm debris and highway rock strikes keep happening to you, a thicker urethane film on the hood and leading edges absorbs impact in a way decorative vinyl never will. That's the correct product for physical protection, and it can sit under or alongside a color wrap. Different tool, different job. Beyond that, the boring advice still wins. Covered parking during storm season. Wash off sediment within a few days instead of letting it sit and stain. That prevents most of what we end up repairing. So look, if you're staring at a damaged wrap right now and trying to guess whether it's a $1,000 problem or a car wash problem, don't guess. Send us some photos, or just swing by the shop on the 31W bypass, and we'll take a look and tell you straight which one you're dealing with before you spend anything. We're Car Wrap Bowling Green, right here in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Numbers 270-817-6497. Give us a call, send the pictures, and we'll go from there.